What happens when Hollywood's golden boy meets late-night television's sharpest tongue, and neither one backs down? Tonight, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had security rushing to the stage and left audiences stunned into silence. This isn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral when egos collide and truth becomes a weapon. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because you're about to witness something that will change how you see both of these men forever. The studio lights dimmed as Jimmy Kimmel adjusted his tie, that familiar smirk playing across his lips as he shuffled his note cards. The audience was buzzing with anticipation. Michael B. Jordan was always a crowd favorite, charming, successful, the kind of guest who usually made for easy television. But tonight felt different from the moment Jordan walked onto that stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incredibly talented Michael B. Jordan," Jimmy announced, his voice carrying that practiced enthusiasm that had made him a late-night staple for years. Jordan emerged from behind the curtain, his usual confident stride slightly more measured than normal. He waved to the crowd, flashed that million-dollar smile, but something in his eyes suggested this wasn't going to be the typical promotional appearance everyone expected. He settled into the guest chair, adjusting his jacket as Jimmy dove right in. "Michael, great to have you back on the show," Jimmy began, leaning forward with genuine warmth. "You look fantastic, as always. I have to ask, though, there's been some interesting buzz around your latest project. People are saying this is your most personal work yet." Jordan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Yeah, well, people say a lot of things, Jimmy. Doesn't make them true." The response caught Jimmy off guard. Usually, Jordan was all smooth answers and easy laughs. This felt sharp, defensive. Jimmy's comedian instincts kicked in, sensing an opportunity to dig deeper. "Come on now, don't be modest. I read that this film deals with some pretty heavy themes. Family legacy, living up to expectations. Sounds like it might hit close to home for someone who's been carrying the weight of being Hollywood's next big thing since he was practically a kid." "You know what, Jimmy?" Jordan said, his voice taking on an edge that made the audience shift uncomfortably in their seats. "I'm getting really tired of this narrative that I'm somehow struggling under pressure or dealing with daddy issues on screen. It's reductive and, frankly, it's lazy journalism." Jimmy's eyebrows shot up. This wasn't the Michael B. Jordan he knew, the one who played along with jokes and kept things light. "Whoa, hold on there, champ. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you here. I'm just noting what the critics are saying about your work." "The critics," Jordan repeated, shaking his head with a bitter laugh. "You mean the same critics who spent years telling me I wasn't leading man material, that I needed to stay in my lane, play the supporting character, be grateful for what I got? Those critics?" The studio had gone quiet now. That electric tension that comes when live television starts going off script. Jimmy tried to lighten the mood, flashing his trademark grin. "Hey, look, we all face criticism in this business. I get roasted on Twitter every single night. It comes with the territory when you put yourself out there." "Twitter roasts," Jordan said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're comparing Twitter jokes to systemic barriers that have kept people who look like me out of leading roles for decades. That's rich, Jimmy. Really rich." Jimmy's smile faltered. "I'm not trying to minimize anyone's struggles here, Michael. I'm just saying we all deal with negativity in our careers." "No, we don't all deal with the same negativity," Jordan fired back, leaning forward in his chair. "You don't get asked in every interview whether you're articulate enough, whether you can carry a film internationally, whether audiences will connect with you. You don't get told you're too ethnic for certain roles or not ethnic enough for others. So don't sit there and act like we're fighting the same battles." The audience was dead silent now. Jimmy's writers were probably scrambling in the control room, wondering whether to cut to commercial. But Jimmy, to his credit or his detriment, decided to press forward. "Okay, I hear you, I do. But isn't part of success learning to rise above all that noise? I mean, Look at where you are now. You're one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. You're making the films you want to make, calling the shots. Isn't that the dream? Jordan's eyes flashed with something between anger and disappointment. The dream? The dream is not having to be twice as good to get half the recognition. The dream is not being the only person who looks like me in every room I walk into. The dream is not having to smile and nod when people like you act like racism is just another career obstacle to overcome with enough hard work and positive thinking. People like me? Jimmy's voice had lost its jovial tone entirely now. What exactly do you mean by that, Michael? I mean people who've never had to question whether they belonged, who've never had their intelligence questioned based on how they look, who get to fail upward while others have to be perfect just to get a chance. The tension in the room was suffocating. Jimmy's usual quick wit seemed to have abandoned him as he processed what was happening. This wasn't just a difficult interview anymore. This was becoming something much more serious. Look, Michael, I think you're attributing things to me that I've never said or believed. I've always been supportive of diversity in Hollywood. I've used my platform to highlight these issues. Supportive? Jordan repeated mockingly. You've made jokes about it. You've had your little monologue moments where you acknowledge that Hollywood has problems, gotten your applause, patted yourself on the back, and then moved on to the next bit. That's not support, Jimmy. That's performance. Jimmy's face flushed red, the accusation hitting harder than he expected. Performance? Are you serious right now? I've dedicated segments of my show to talking about representation. I've called out the Academy. I've given platforms to voices that need to be heard. When it was safe, Jordan shot back without missing a beat. When it was trending, when it made you look good. But where were you when actors like me were grinding for years trying to get meetings? Where was your platform then? You gave us segments after we'd already broken down the doors ourselves. The audience was watching a car crash in slow motion. Some people were pulling out their phones, others were looking around nervously, wondering if they should be witnessing this level of raw honesty on what was supposed to be light entertainment. Jimmy's voice took on a defensive edge. I can't champion every cause from the beginning, Michael. I'm a comedian, not an activist. My job is to entertain people. Right there, Jordan said, pointing at Jimmy with barely contained fury. That's exactly the problem. You get to choose when to care, when to be political, when to take a stand. The rest of us don't get that luxury. We live this reality every single day. We don't get to turn it off when the cameras stop rolling. I never said I'd turn anything off, Jimmy protested, his voice rising slightly. But you're sitting here attacking me like I'm personally responsible for every injustice in Hollywood. I'm one person. I do what I can with the platform I have. The platform you have, Jordan repeated, his voice thick with sarcasm. Do you know how many people would kill for your platform? How many voices have been silenced while you've used yours to make jokes about celebrity divorces and Twitter feuds? You have the power to change conversations, to shift narratives, and you choose to keep things safe and comfortable. Jimmy's jaw clenched. Safe and comfortable? Do you think it's safe and comfortable for me to sit here and let you lecture me on national television? Do you think I don't face criticism every single day for the choices I make? Criticism from who? Jordan demanded. From other privileged people who think you've gone too far? That's not the same thing as having your entire existence questioned, having people debate whether you deserve the opportunities you've earned. The conversation had taken on a life of its own, spiraling beyond what either man had intended. Jimmy tried to regain control, falling back on his hosting instincts. Look, Michael, I think we're getting into territory that's bigger than both of us here. Maybe we should talk about your upcoming projects. Give people something positive to focus on. No, Jordan said firmly, his voice cutting through Jimmy's attempt to redirect. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The moment things get uncomfortable, the moment real issues come up, You want to change the subject. You want to go back to the safe space where we smile and laugh and pretend everything is fine. This is a talk show, not a debate stage, Jimmy said, frustration creeping into his voice. People tune in to escape from heavy topics, not to be lectured about social justice. Jordan's eyes widened in disbelief. Escape from heavy topics? These aren't topics for me, Jimmy. This is my life. This is the reality I wake up to every morning. You get to escape from it because it doesn't affect you personally. Everything affects me personally, Jimmy snapped, his composure finally cracking. Every decision I make on this show gets scrutinized. Every joke gets analyzed. Every guest and appearance gets picked apart. You think I don't feel pressure? You think I don't worry about saying the wrong thing? The wrong thing to who? Jordan pressed. To your network executives? To your advertisers? That's not the same as worrying about whether your very presence threatens people, whether your success makes others uncomfortable, whether you'll be labeled as difficult for speaking up about things that matter. Jimmy stood up abruptly, his chair rolling back slightly. The audience gasped, unsure if this was part of some elaborate bit or if their beloved host was genuinely losing his cool. You know what, Michael? I've tried to be respectful here. I've tried to have a conversation, but you're determined to paint me as the villain in your story. I'm not your enemy. I'm not the system you're fighting against. I'm just a guy trying to do his job. Jordan remained seated, but his posture was rigid, every muscle in his body tense. Just doing your job is the problem, Jimmy. Just going along. With the system, just keeping things light and easy, just maintaining the status quo. That's how nothing changes. And what exactly do you want me to change? Jimmy demanded, his voice echoing slightly in the studio. Should I turn every interview into a political discussion? Should I make every monologue about race relations? Should I sacrifice the show that employs hundreds of people to become some kind of activist platform? I want you to acknowledge your privilege, Jordan said, his voice deadly calm. I want you to recognize that your comfort, your ability to stay above the fray, comes at a cost to people who don't have that luxury. I want you to understand that neutrality isn't neutral when people are struggling for basic respect and recognition. The silence that followed was deafening. Camera operators were glancing at each other, unsure whether to keep rolling. The live audience sat frozen, witnessing something that felt too real, too raw for the confines of a television studio. Jimmy slowly sat back down, his movements deliberate. You want to talk about privilege? Let's talk about privilege. You're sitting here, one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood, lecturing me about struggle. You've got Marvel movies, magazine covers, endorsement deals. Don't act like you're speaking from the streets. Jordan's composure finally cracked. Are you kidding me right now? You think success erases where I came from? You think money changes? The fact that I still get followed around stores, that people still question my intelligence, that I still have to work twice as hard to get the same respect you take for granted? Don't you dare, Jimmy said, his voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare sit there and act like your success doesn't insulate you from reality. You live in mansions. You travel in private jets. You have teams of people protecting you from the very experiences you're claiming to represent. Jordan shot to his feet, towering over Jimmy's desk. You think money makes racism disappear? You think success means I don't have to deal with coded language in meetings, with being told I'm intimidating when I negotiate, with having my every move scrutinized because I represent something that makes people uncomfortable? And you think my life has been handed to me on a silver platter? Jimmy fired back, standing up to meet Jordan's energy. You think I didn't grind for years in comedy clubs, getting booed off stages, sleeping in my car, wondering if I'd ever make it? Success isn't guaranteed for anyone, Michael. But when you failed, it was just failure, Jordan said, his voice rising. When I fail, it's proof that people like me don't belong. When you get a second chance, it's because you've earned it. When I get a second chance, It's because of diversity quotas or political correctness. That's the difference you refuse to see. The studio audience was shifting uncomfortably, some people actually getting up to leave. This had gone so far beyond entertainment that it felt invasive to watch, like witnessing a private argument that had spilled into public view. Jimmy's face was flushed, his usual composure completely abandoned. You know what? I'm tired of being the punching bag for everyone's frustrations with the industry. I didn't create Hollywood. I didn't design the system, and I sure as hell didn't ask to be the representative for every white guy who's ever gotten a break. But you benefit from it, Jordan shot back. Every single day you benefit from it. And instead of acknowledging that, you want to act like we're all fighting the same battles. That's not solidarity, Jimmy. That's willful ignorance. Willful ignorance? Jimmy's voice cracked with indignation. I've had conversations about this stuff. I've tried to learn. I've made efforts to be better. But apparently nothing I do is good enough for you. Apparently I'm guilty just by existing. You're guilty of being comfortable with inequality as long as it doesn't affect you directly, Jordan said, his words cutting through the studio like a blade. You're guilty of thinking that acknowledgement without action is enough. You're guilty of believing that good intentions excuse harmful impact. Jimmy slammed his hand down on his desk, the sound echoing through the studio like a gunshot. What do you want from me, Michael? What would be enough? Should I quit my job and hand it over to someone else? Should I donate my entire salary to charity? Should I prostrate myself before you and beg for forgiveness for crimes I didn't commit? I want you to stop making this about yourself, Jordan said, his voice deadly calm despite the chaos around them. I want you to stop acting like calling out privilege is a personal attack. I want you to understand that when people like me speak up, we're not trying to destroy you. We're trying to save ourselves. The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Jimmy stared at Jordan, his chest heaving, his carefully constructed television persona completely shattered. The audience was dead silent, some people covering their mouths in shock. You know what, Michael? Jimmy said finally, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow carrying throughout the entire studio. I think we're done here. I think this conversation has run its course. Are you serious right now? Jordan asked, disbelief coloring his voice. You're going to end the interview because I challenged you? Because I made you uncomfortable? I'm ending it because this isn't a conversation anymore, Jimmy said, straightening his tie with shaking hands. This is a character assassination, disguised as social commentary. This is you using my platform to tear me down instead of building something constructive. Jordan laughed, but there was no humor in it. There it is. My platform, you said. Your platform. Like I'm some guest who should be grateful for the opportunity to sit at your table. Like I should smile and nod and play along with whatever narrative makes you comfortable. That's not what I meant, and you know it, Jimmy said, but his voice lacked conviction. That's exactly what you meant, Jordan replied. The moment I stopped being the grateful guest, the moment I started speaking truth instead of playing along with your script, I became the problem. That's how this works, isn't it? We're welcome as long as we stay in our lane, as long as we don't make waves. Jimmy turned to one of the producers hovering near the stage. Can we get security, please? I think Mr. Jordan needs some help finding his way out. The words hit the studio like a physical blow. The audience gasped audibly, some people standing, up in their seats. Jordan's face went through a series of emotions, shock, anger, and finally something that looked like vindication. Security, Jordan repeated slowly, shaking his head. You're calling security on me for having a conversation, for speaking my truth, for refusing to be silenced when things got uncomfortable. You're being disruptive, Jimmy said, but his voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. This is my show, this is my studio, and I have the right to maintain order. Order, Jordan said, picking up his jacket from the chair. Is that what you call it when someone challenges your worldview? Disorder? Is that what happens when the comfortable narrative gets disrupted? Two security guards appeared at the edge of the stage, looking uncertain about their role in this television nightmare. Jordan looked at them, then back at Jimmy. His expression, a mixture of disappointment and resignation. "You know what the saddest part about all this is, Jimmy?" Jordan said, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to settle over the entire studio. "I actually respected you. I thought you were different. I thought you were someone who could handle real conversation, who could sit with discomfort and grow from it. But you're just like everyone else who talks a good game until they're actually challenged to examine themselves." Jimmy's mouth opened as if to respond, but no words came out. He looked like a man who had realized too late that he had made a terrible mistake, but pride and shock kept him from backing down. Jordan walked toward the security guards, then stopped and turned back one final time. "This is exactly why nothing changes. This is exactly why we keep having the same conversations, over and over again. Because the moment someone tries to push past the surface, the moment someone refuses to make you comfortable with your own complicity, you shut it down. You call security. You end the conversation." He looked directly into the main camera, speaking to the audience at home. "You all saw this. You saw what happens when someone tries to have a real conversation about real issues. Remember this moment the next time someone tells you that all we need is dialogue, that all we need is understanding. Some people don't want to understand. They just want to maintain their comfort at any cost." The security guards gently guided Jordan toward the exit, but he was walking on his own power, his head held high. The studio remained frozen in stunned silence as he disappeared behind the curtain. Jimmy stood alone at his desk, the weight of what had just happened settling around him like a shroud. The cameras kept rolling, capturing Jimmy's face as he tried to process what had just occurred. He looked out at his audience, many of whom were staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to disappointment to something that might have been shame. "We're going to take a break," Jimmy said finally, his voice barely audible. "We'll be right back." But as the cameras cut away and the studio lights dimmed, everyone in that room knew that something had fundamentally shifted. This wasn't just a celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a moment that would be dissected and analyzed for years to come. A moment that revealed ugly truths about comfort, privilege, and the price of speaking truth to power. What did you think about this explosive confrontation? Do you think Jimmy was right to call security, or should he have let the conversation continue? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more stories that reveal the real drama behind Hollywood's polished facade.